Panel webinar. My name is Christiane Smith. I'm the director of Unanet University, and I'm here today with Stacy Ricola from the Customer Success Management team. Stacy, are you there?
I'm here. Thank you. Welcome, everyone.
So Stacy will be helping to address your questions at the end of the webinar, and she will also be recording the webinar to post in the Knowledge Center next week. Thank you so much, Stacy, for joining us. So let's get down to business. Our agenda for today will cover a new Unanet report, the Project Control Panel. I'm going to begin with a quick introduction of the report. Then we'll go into Unanet to review the criteria screen elements and look at the click-through options, including an attempt to answer the question, is it a hamburger or an accordion? Lastly, we'll discuss some resources for you to use to find out more information about this report. So the Project Control Panel is your new one-stop shop for some great information. The report offers one place to go for basic project data and access to the project profile, financial health of your project, including the revenue, cost, and status summary and drill down options. The report is available in the Unanet Portfolio and Portfolio Financials family of licenses. It was released in version 10.2 in late 2016. If you are hosting Unanet in an on-premise model, you can access the latest release information from our website and by contacting our support team. If you are accessing Unanet in our on-demand or cloud model, you already have this release, so you have access to the report based on your license. So what's included in this report? Well, the report is designed to give you project information at a quick glance. The report is designed to show one project per row and include all the data listed on the screen. When you execute the report, you have the option to change the column options to make this report work the best for you. So it's really a great report with a lot of flexibility. In addition to these quick glance options, the report also includes a number of drill downs into various elements, including the project profile. So right from this project code list here, you can drill into the project profile. You're able to drill into the AR aging report if you have our financials license to see the AR balances. And there's a number of complementary reports that you can drill to, including the billing and revenue summary, the cost summary and status, the invoice status, organization activity, and the project transactions. So let's go into Unanet and take a look at the criteria for this report. We're first going to focus on that quick glance option, and then we'll review the drill down detail options as we go. So a quick switch over to Unanet here. So this is my Unanet system. In order to access the report, you'll go out to the reports dashboard, and underneath the Project Accounting Reports section, under the Summary Reports, you'll see this report listed as Project Control Panel. Typically, this report will be available to project administrators that have access to bill and cost rate or other financial information. So if you have access, for example, to the Project Cost Summary, you'll have access to Project Control Panel. It's also available to your system administrators and others that have access for full administrator rights. I have a copy of this report out here, so I'm just going to click on that and bring up the report. So here it is. This is the report pretty close to its default format. Let's investigate the criteria screen to say how that we can impact this report. So we're going to go in and take a look at how we can impact the columns that are available here. And if I scroll over, you'll see in the default report, we have this year-to-date, inception to date, we have some budget and funded value numbers, and our AR balance and project status. Back on the criteria screen, we'll see that the criteria screen for this report begins with a number of filters and criteria options that are shared with other project-based reports, and you're likely familiar with these, things like the project, project manager, etc. As I scroll down here, the first option I'll start with is the date. The quick glance section is displayed with a current period year-to-date, and inception-to-date data. So the date that you choose here is the current period date. We always recommend in our standard reports that you choose a relative date range so that when you save the report criteria, it's always going to show you the latest and greatest information. So I have saved this report looking at the current quarter as my current period date range. Next up, we have a number of ways to sort the report using the sorting options. The sorting options can drastically change the order in which the results are given. You'll choose the options that select your needs the best. And I want you to remember that your project organization represents your customer, and your owning organization typically represents the department or division recognizing the revenue for your project. There's an option out here also to group and subtotal based on your sorting option, which is really a very cool choice. So let's check that out. So I'm going to take the report, I'm going to choose to sort this by the owning organization or my internal departments, and I'm going to choose to group and subtotal the report based on that. And when I go back out to run the report again, you'll see now that I have the same projects, but they're grouped and organized by those internal departments, my IT group, my PMO group, etc. And I can see that I have grand totals down here for each department or division. And lastly, then I have the grand totals at the very bottom of the report. So this is the subtotaling option, and this is the sorting option. I think that's pretty cool and really could be very helpful as you're building out this report. Okay, back on the criteria screen, if I scroll back down again, the next stop here is the column options. Here you can choose from the options available to modify the data that is presented in the report. So you can see options available here of things to include, and the choices selected are those that are included by default, and then you have other options that you can include. So for example, I want to include my project's total value because I do want to see how much of my project total I have available to me. And I think I just want to look at inception to date numbers. So I can take out those current period and year to date columns and just look at my inception to date. And now when I go out and run this report, you'll notice that it's a little bit narrower, meaning that I'm missing out here on the current period and the year to date numbers, but I can see my inception to date numbers to look and see how I'm doing. And as I scroll to the right, I can not only see my funded value numbers, but now I can look at my total value and what is remaining of that total value, which may be very helpful for me to look at this glance type of report here. Okay, back to the criteria screen. Next up, we have some filter options that will limit the results of your data. This can be very helpful if you want to focus on projects with a certain value, like within a certain revenue or bill variance range, or projects that may require notice to the contracting officer for additional funding, using this funding value area. So for example, I can put in a filter to look for projects that have used currently more than 85% of their funded value. And when I go out and now run this report, I'll see that there are a number of fewer projects here, all of which, as I scroll to the right, I can see are running out of funding, and I probably need to go back and get some additional funding for the project. You may also notice something like I have more funded than my total value of my project, so that might be some data entry error here. And that's the convenience of having the click-through option directly into the project code. So for example, I could go out and see that maybe I have a data entry problem for my funded or total value or one of my budget numbers, and I can go directly into that project profile on another tab here. And I can get in and adjust or modify budgets and adjust and modify my total and funded values here. Maybe this is supposed to be 18 instead of 8. And when I save that, come back to my report and refresh this, I'll see that my numbers are changing just a bit here. So of course you wouldn't want to do that if you didn't really have the money, but just for demonstration's sake, I wanted to show you how you can drill right into the project profile from the report. The other drill down that we have from this quick glance information is if you have our financial licenses, you can drill into the current AR balance, which takes you into the AR aging report and shows you those balances and what's due and overdue, for example. Additionally, this report offers some further drill down information into the transactions that make up these balances. If you're not familiar with the AR aging report, certainly please do look at the help documentation to find out more information about it, but generally it's just showing you what's out there and outstanding for payments from your customer. And that's available again right from the AR balance column. Okay, so let's talk about some additional drill through reports. And while we're here, I'm going to pose a big question to you. This icon, what is it? Is it a hamburger or is it an accordion? According to Wikipedia, it's the standard icon representing a hamburger, which we all find very funny. I like to think of it as an accordion because what this icon does is it expands the selections for drill downs into other reports. So this is a hotly debated question in the services team because we like to have a lot of fun with Unanet, but I like to think of it again as the accordion because as you open this, it's going to drop down options to drill into complementary reports showing information related to the dashboard quick view that you're seeing here in the project control panel. Now on the criteria screen of this main project control panel, there are, as we scroll down here, options to choose or change what you're going to see in the report when you drill down to that report from our accordion or hamburger icon. So let's talk about the cost summary and status click-through report first. When you click through to the cost summary and status report, you're going to want to select this cost report name that's going to best suit your needs. Remember that your Unanet administrator can define the layout, fields, and the formulas included in any version of the cost report. There's now an option to copy the report formats as well. So for any of you that have been working with cost reports and wanting to be able to create a copy of a cost report, you now have that functionality. So thank you so much to the developers that made that happen, and thank you to all of you customers that perhaps offered that suggestion to our development team, so it's now included in the product. Next, you're going to choose the indirect rate set to use when you're calculating the indirect costs, and so you can look at the targeted rates, provisional, or the actual rate for your indirects. The cost summary and status report is a periodic-based report, so you'll choose your periodic reporting options, including the periodic breakdown and the number of periods, which is really common for all of our Unanet periodic reports. So I can look at something like reporting on the quarter per quarter, starting with the previous quarter and going out for 8 quarters or something like that. Lastly here, we're going to choose from our row options to give visibility into the labor and expense plans, the budgets, or the actuals with your variances. If you choose to combine the plans or budgets with your actuals, remember to select how to calculate the projected remaining based on either the original plan or budget or based on the remaining plan or budget. This is a new calculation feature that also became available in Unanet 10.2 version. For more information on this calculation, please see the help documentation or let us know if you have any questions about this. But it's a great tool to analyze your data just a little bit differently to see what's remaining of your budgets or plans. So I'm going to run this report with the click-through to look at a quarter-by-quarter analysis. I'm also going to be looking at my budgets with my actuals that are remaining moving forward using the remaining hours when I click through for the report. So let me go ahead and run the report. That's going to bring up my standard project control panel where I see everything at a glance. And when I come over to my hamburger or my accordion and I click on that, I can go out to the cost summary and status report, which will open in a new tab. And here I can see that the report layout uses my default JSR layout. I have a quarter-by-quarter analysis here, and I'm looking at the actuals through date and then my budget moving forward using my remaining budget and showing information that's included in this report. Now, because each one of the reports that I drill to from the project control panel opens up in a new tab, I can always come back also and change the criteria of this report. So although my click-through options have me going out and looking at quarter-by-quarter analysis, once I arrive at the report by clicking through, I can come back to the criteria here and make changes as needed. So really all I did when I set up my click-through on the panel was to modify those settings here, but I can also come back. Maybe I want to show the tasks. I can come back and add that, and when now I rerun the report, just in its own tab here, I'm just impacting this cost summary and status, and now I can drill down and I can look at the tasks and things like that. So it's really this, again, this idea of the one-stop shop, because you're here, you're looking at quick glance, you decide you need to drill down and look at more detail. Once you're on the more detailed tabs here, you can go out and do some additional analysis and drill even further from here. The project control panel also includes a drill down into the project transactions report. And there's a click-through option for that as well. So let me scroll down to the bottom here, and we'll see the click-through option for the project transaction report. This option allows you to choose to show comments. The report will provide details, so the project transaction report provides details to what transactions, including labor, expenses, fixed price items, funding caps, etc., have been charged to a particular project. If you choose to show the comments, then you're going to be showing for your timesheets the time cell comment, for the expense report line items, your line item comments and wizard comments, and for any financial document expenses, you'll be looking at the description of that entry. So by showing the comments on my click-through here, when I run my project control panel, I see my quick glance information, I go to my hamburger, drill into this project transactions report, and that'll bring up in a new tab all of those transactions that are making up this information, looking at a beginning of time to end of time date range and posted out this current fiscal year. And if I had any timesheet data, I'd see comments there. If I have expense line items, I'd see comments there. Here I have a date and time for some of my transactions. I'd see details about my AR transactions, etc. So it's allowing me, again, to really dig into the details here and see the various transactions that are coming into play and making up the numbers that I'm looking at here in my project control panel. Now our hamburger/accordion is also providing us access to information through the billing and revenue summary report, the invoice status and organization activity report as well. As each of these reports really provides us with some great drill down information, I thought we'd like to talk about the reports and discuss a little bit about what those reports are showing us. So let's start with the billing and revenue summary report. So this report will provide summary level information related to what has happened in the system with respect to billing and revenue recognition. This report does not include any projected values, so it's all just data that has already been posted. The transactions reported on this report are the result of the billing and revenue post or the invoice completion process. The report provides a summary of all billing and revenue transactions posted to Unanet journals for a given project date, or through a given project date. Now this report is a summary level report. So I got here from the control panel, I drilled into my summary report, and from here I can always go in using the click-through options within this report itself to drill into the related detail report. So for example, now I'm in my billing and revenue details report and I wanted to see the detailed list of all of the transactions that are sitting in my unbilled account. So here they all are. So again, it's really giving me, just from 3 clicks here, the ability to drill into what's happening with my billed status and what my unbilled and billed numbers are for this project. It's some really great information. The project control panel also offers a drill down directly into the invoice status. This report provides information regarding the status of an invoice, including the invoice date, the invoice number, and other summary type information. This report can be directed to provide a summary of status information as well as provide the detailed preview versions of each invoice. So by selecting this from the project control panel, I see for the beginning to end of time all of the invoices for my project. Now, here I've got some zero balances. I can see the amount of the invoice and the AR balance. If I go back to the criteria, again, within this invoice status report, I can choose some different options here as well. Because I'm in a different tab, it's not impacting what's going on over here on my project control panel. So I can come into the invoice status report and I can look at other information. So for example, I could limit this down to just the invoices that have been created for the current fiscal year. And I can do things like include the detail view, which is going to allow me to not only see that summary of information for the invoice, but I also have the ability through the eyeglass icon to drill down and take a look at the actual invoice itself. So this is a view, a preview of that invoice using the invoice format that was included in my original project setup. And from here, in this invoice status report, you do have the opportunity to go out and include things that were emailed or printed out. You can also take a look at information based on date ranges. There's all kinds of great ways to kind of sort and filter this down into the data that you really need to look at. But I think this is a great way to get a list of those invoices that are sitting out there for your customer. And again, with the financials license, you'll have access then to drill into the balance information. If you had any voids, if you had any discounts, etc., you'd be able to see that right from this report as well. Okay, so back to my project control panel. Last but not least, in the hamburger or accordion icon, we do have access to the org activity report. So this report provides a view for a single organization, likely your customer, with a filterable list of projects belonging to that organization. The report allows for information like the contacts and addresses for your customer, as well as activity, including timesheet comments, project notes, and project comments. So the intent is to provide a quick glance activity for your organization as a whole to see what's happening for this customer too at a whole. This report has really been a helpful report to many of our customers that are managing many projects for a single customer, gives them the list of all of those projects, and really it gives them the ability to see what's happening with that client. It also includes, for the projects listed, the user-defined fields for that project, as well as the user-defined fields for your organization. And so you have the ability to look at quite a bit of information that you may choose to include for your projects or organizations that are not necessarily standard fields. When you set up as an administrator the user-defined fields, you can include a user-defined field that's a URL with an active link. So some of our customers have been able to set up URLs to go out to various websites or share information right from this report, again, to give a drill down capability. So this organization activity report, if you haven't looked at this one yet, is really a great report. Okay, so I do have here some resources for you to consider if you're looking for more information about the project control panel. The first thing I would encourage you to do, if you have yet to do so, is go out and check out the 10.2 What's New documentation for this 10.2 version. We do have a recorded webinar on the Knowledge Center about all of the 10.2 functionality, as well as a written description in the help documentation. Additionally, you can always search in the help documentation for a report, by example, by just putting in that report name. So here, a project control panel will bring up a help document specifically to that report. And lastly, of course, you can always contact your customer success manager if you do have any questions. So let me go in and show you in the help. When you open up the help documentation, you will come into a contents area where the what's new in this release is the top menu item in the content. This is where you can see for our major releases, like 10.2 is a major release, all of the different items that came into as enhancements to that version of the product. You can see here that the project control panel report is right here, kind of towards the top of some of the information that was included in 10.2. Additionally, in the top right-hand corner of the screen, we have a search box area where you can always come out and search for something like a report name, and when you execute that search, the system will come up with search results, and that will take you directly into a page just about that report with links into other areas, of course, an example of the criteria and an example of the output of the report. So if you're looking for all of the detailed information, this is helpful. I also wanted to point out here that when you're in the example report output, there's a section at the bottom of this page for report notes. And it's important to see this because this explains really the value of the various fields that we have in the report. So if you're wondering, where did this number come from, how are we calculating that number, etc., it's all right here, written out in the help documentation. It will show you, for example, when we're looking at billable hours, what does that mean? Or if we're looking at billable dollars, we're looking at the bill rate of your labor. For example, when you're looking at expenses, we're going to be looking at the markup plus your expense cost for the billable amount of expenses. You might be looking at things that are coming in from revenue and write-offs. So those are typically coming in from your funding cap adjustment, the write-off in your invoice, or your fee cap adjustments on your cost plus contract. So there's a lot of information here that's really getting into the nuts and bolts about where do these numbers come from and how can you expect to see that. Additionally, for the drill downs available from the hamburger or accordion icon, you can see that it links directly into those reports so that you can also look at the same information really for these other supplementary reports, and again see, as I scroll down here, some information about how the data is collected and what we're showing. So I think that that's really important to note if you're looking at trying to investigate the numbers and understand where those numbers came from. So I think it's time for questions. Stacy, do we have any questions out there?
This is a first. No, we do not have any questions today.
Wow.
I know.
Well, I have a feeling that there might be some, so we can wait for a couple minutes to see what kinds of questions start to trickle in here. Great report. Lots of really great information in this one.
And also, I mean, if anyone thinks of a question, you know, after the webinar is over, you can always contact your CSM and, you know, we can help you as well. But yeah, there aren't any currently, not any questions. Oh, here's one.
Okay.
All right. Is there a way to exclude projects with zeros? My reports always bring up all projects.
Okay. Great question. So the user, the person asking this question must be an administrator. You get all projects, that means typically you're an administrator and you're looking at lots of great information. But that is a great question. You know, how can you slim this down so that you're really just looking at information that's relevant? Well, I think there's a couple of things that you can do. First of all, in my default report that I saved for myself, I did go out and select from the billing types and not include the non-billable projects. That sometimes is very helpful or something to think about, because this report will bring up every project in your database if you don't filter further, including non-billable projects, which probably doesn't relate very well in this type of report. One thing that you can think about doing as well is saving your criteria to use some of these filter options. So for example, maybe you want to look at projects that have a revenue that's more than one. You know, that means that you have to have some revenue in there, or the bill variance or the write-off, for example. So these filter options will allow you to do some of that, to trick the system, if you will, into looking for projects that really do have data in them. So hopefully that will help. And one other note, I think that I maybe forgot to mention and intended to, was that when you do run this report project control panel, we are including only the posted data by default. You can deselect this, but what posted data is, or data that has been posted in the labor cost post, expense cost post, and or the billing and revenue post. So with this option selected, it should also mean that you're only going to see projects that have that do have posted labor, expense, costs, and billing and revenue numbers. That will help you get rid of the zeros as well.
Okay, we have a few more questions that are coming in. Next is, I always set my funded value and budgets by task. Can we make these show up in the report?
That's a good question. At this time, we do not have at the project control panel the task level. So what's going to show out here is your funded value and your total value, with the remaining numbers is going to be for the project summary level, the sum total. So if you are managing your project at the task level, particularly your funding, which we often see that you manage your funding at the task level, then what you're likely going to need to do for that is focus on, here it is, your cost summary. Cost summary and status report was the one that I was thinking of. There is one that's showing me my funded value. Well, stump the teacher here. The cost summary and status report, you can run this to include your tasks. You can also run now, which is a new feature in 10.2, your project cost summary report, which can show your funded value and things. You can also show that at the task level. So I think in that case, you'll have to use some of those other reports to get to that funded and variance funded number.
Okay, very good, thank you. Here's another one. My project control panel does not have the cost summary and status option from the hamburger drill down.
Okay, the hamburger. Yeah, so the drill downs that you see here, I am logged into the system currently as an administrator, and I'm guessing that you are not an administrator. And so you will only see the options here based on the roles and privileges that you have. You may not have access to that project cost summary report if you are not a project manager or project lead with a cost rate manager role. There's also a separate way to give access to this specific report that the administrator can set to see summary costs, but there are some limitations to the availability of this report because it does show direct cost, direct labor cost. So you may see some differences in here. That's a great point. Thank you for asking the question. Based on your role and your permissions in the system.
We don't have any more. Someone made a comment that yes, it is a hamburger. Smiley face.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Yeah, you know, Wikipedia says it's a hamburger, but I don't know. I didn't know that Unanet had anything to do with snacks, but hey, that's all right. I kind of like calling it the hamburger icon. It's kind of fun that way.
Yeah, I'm looking, but yeah, that's it, Christiane.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. Well, if you're thinking of any more questions, you're furiously typing. That's all right. Keep typing. We'll come back. But just to wrap few things up here, I did want to just remind you that the Unanet University class schedule is out on our website. We do have classes scheduled all the way through the end of the year, so hopefully you can take a look at these and come out and register for a class. I also wanted to note that we do have the Q2 customer webinars topics coming out soon. They should be out in the next week or so, so please check back to register for the upcoming Q2 webinars. Also for the rest of March, we have a webinar in 2 weeks about the Unanet Manager functionality and some of the management reports for managing people in the system. And then on the 30th of March, we have a webinar that's going to be about accounts receivable and accounts payable. So please go out and take a look at the customer webinars and get registered for those. If you have any additional questions that you're not typing in the system right now, that's fine. Please feel free to reach out at any time to our customer success management team, our support team, the email address listed here. and we'll be happy to help you, as always. And just as a note, we will have the recording of this webinar out and available in the Knowledge Center next week. Anytime that you want to catch up on webinars from the past that you may have missed, you can go out to the Knowledge Center and search for webinars. You'll see a list of all the past customer account management webinars. And I'll check in with Stacy one more time. Are there any final questions?
Yes, there's one more.
Okay, great.
She says, I am the administrator, but it does not show cost summary and status report.
Okay, you are the administrator without the cost summary and status report. Okay, that was the only thing I thought of as roles. So I will plan to follow up after the webinar. We'll send you an email or give you a call to make sure that we have answered that question. I'm not thinking of any other reason why it's not there at the moment.
Okay. That is all. Thank you, Christine.
Okay. Yeah, great. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you all soon at another webinar and at our conference in sunny San Diego. So hopefully we'll see you all there. Thank you for joining, and we'll hear from you soon.